Let's talk about Koala Man, the latest animated comedy series from Hulu, executive produced by Justin Roiland, but coming from the mind of Michael Cusack. Cusack and Roiland have had several previous links, including Cusack animating the side-splitting Aussie Rick and Morty parody Bushworld Adventures. Now he brings a new adult show to life surrounding the adventures of average man Kevin Williams, aka the average superhero Koala Man. I'm going to discuss this first season with some key plot details and themes, meaning that this review will contain major spoilers ahead, so you have been warned. If you want an idea of the bizarre road ahead, look no further than the almost immediate appearance of Damo and Darren, Cusack's viral animated web series characters. Not only was it nice to see them pop up multiple times throughout the show, but their siggy butt brains were more than enough to set the ball rolling in a good direction in the rundown town of Dapto. It's a real suburb of New South Wales, so if you're from Dapto, is this what it's really like? Or is it somehow worse? Because the trouble here is it's not very well protected, as Koala Man is a total klutz who only saves the day through a lot of luck. The town doesn't respect him, even the animals can't be arsed with him, and his only real accomplishments come from stupidly trivial matters, like a lawn being slightly too long. All of his family know that it's Kevin under that talking koala mask. Love that, by the way, as he imagines the mask has a personality, but after losing his mask and then getting a new one, the new one has a different personality, despite it all being in Kevin's head. Like, just because it's a new mask, why would it have a different persona if it's imaginary anyway? It's great stuff. Oh, and the fact that Kevin himself writes the kick-ass Koala Man theme song in episode 1 before it gets used for the rest of the series, with characters in the world complimenting how awesome the song is. I loved that. It was silly touches like that throughout the series that kept it a lot of fun to experience. To give it its credit, Koala Man was super easy to watch and a perfect show to de-stress to and just have some fun with. It's absolutely not as abstract as some of Cusack's previous works though, which could be taken in a combination of good and bad senses. I think it's good in a sense because it improves the show's accessibility for new viewers, and it still contains a lot of off-the-wall nonsense, but it's carefully selected and spaced apart, mostly running like a common suburban family type show, with Kevin's family all having their own stories going on. However, the bad sense from not being as abstract to me is I don't think it's as impactful or as quotable as the likes of Bushworld Adventures in particular. That entire episode was a big comedic hit to me because it was rough around the edges chaos, never knowing what was going to happen next, whereas a lot of the writing in Koala Man, yes, is crazy and wild, but generally speaking is a lot smoother around the edges and a bit more formulaic. That Cusackian mentality I was craving from the show was still in there, but diluted down to a smaller percentage of what I'd have liked to have seen personally. However, I do fully understand and appreciate why they've toned it down a couple notches, because I get that Cusack's older style can be a bit overwhelming for some. Many people just simply not getting on board with it. I mean, I actually do think a lot of the funnier elements to Koala Man came from exploiting real-world observational comedy, punchlining them without their concepts. In episode 1, the town goes to hell all because Kevin forgets to put the bins out on bin day, so nobody else puts theirs out and the collection gets missed. Of course, we know what really happened to the bins later in the series, but in this episode, it's such a weird notion, but bloody accurate. Especially here in the UK, like, we can never remember what day it is, what colour bin it needs to be, so just pop your head out the door and copy what someone else has done. Every street has their first mover where everyone else can domino effect from them. In the series, the consequence of the bins not going out is that a giant rubbish-eating plant monster isn't fed, so it heads to the town to eat its rubbish and its people, who are also rubbish. This tall poppy creature gave me vibes of Cagney Carnation from Cuphead, by the way. But yeah, I really loved this episode. Simple, funny little premise about a daft part of the real world, but switched into a superhero save the town style plot, with off-the-wall comedy bleeding through. It was a good combination, which continued to sift out through the rest of the series. My favourite episode for making the best of that concept was the Tradies episode, where 4 tradespeople, including a bricklayer, carpenter, electrician, and the brilliant Lady Tradie, were an evil squad with associated superpowers until they formed together like Megazord into Jack of all Tradies. Oh man, that punchline to that entire segment, wondering who the hell Jack was, only to get delivered with a genius level pun after a mega transformation scene. Ah man, I burst at this and was my biggest laugh of the series. Just the pacing of it to that payoff, it worked brilliantly. Even at the start of this episode, there's an exaggeration of another real world issue. Old people not understanding modern TVs or being able to make sense of changing the source, no matter how simply explained it is. Many of us have been there before, so I connected with this scene. Like, to be honest, most of Koala Man's obstacles in his daily life as a superhero are relatable in some capacity, which to me was quite cool writing. I was also a huge fan of how Australian the show is. I mean, why wouldn't it be? It's set in Australia with an Australian creator, but I loved how it tapped into culturally specific things, like them being so many hours ahead in terms of time zones, which here in the show means they're literally in the future. There's a competition dedicated to sausage rolls and red sauce. The Queen of Australia is Nicole Kidman. Koala Man's arch nemesis is the Kookaburra, and we have a historic war between Daptor and emus. We even get an episode where an American named Chad Wagon, voiced by Roiland, attempts to fully Americanize Daptor, with Kevin's son, Liam, being the brainwashing target, as he already uses American phrases like fries and ketchup instead of chips and red sauce. I really enjoyed how the show harnessed its geographical identity, not trying to dumb itself down for wider audiences, rather embracing its roots, giving the audience an idea what it's really like in Oz. And the supporting voice cast of big Australasian actors such as Australian Hugh Jackman, Kiwi Jemaine Clement, and Hugo Weaving, who is an honorary officer of the Order of Australia, having resided in Australia for his entire career, were just nice casting touches to reflect the talent from that neck of the woods. Generally, Koala Man did have a lot of positives for me, but now I'll chat about a couple things I wasn't so keen on. I think Kevin's family didn't offer an awful lot for me in particular. Sure, big families like this are commonplace in these kinds of animated shows. Take the central character and then think how strong the ones around them are. Homer Simpson, strong character, surrounded by Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, all memorable, strong characters who can be central focuses of episodes. Peter Griffin, surrounded by Lois, Chris, Meg, Brian, Stewie. I'm by no means a Family Guy fan, but these characters are iconic and have stood the test of time. Now let's move to Koala Man. Kevin, strong character, surrounded by Vicky, Liam, and Allison. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest here, I didn't think that these 3 characters were able to carry episodes and didn't really do an awful lot that was memorable to me. Despite all having multiple subplots and 1 episode story arcs, I always found myself way more interested in what Kevin was getting up to. I was kinda waiting around to see more of what had engaged me in the first place, and no matter how many times I pushed myself, I wasn't able to establish a favourable bond with any of the other family members, simply due to not being as interested as the title character. That could totally just be a me thing though, so if you loved any of those characters, then I'd love to hear your favourite moments in the comments. As for other things I was unsure of, in hindsight, alluding to a comment I made earlier in the video, I perhaps do wish it did push the Michael Cusack bar up a bit higher. The show has its moments for certain, but I would have loved to have had even more Damo and Darren level absurdity. Hopefully in future seasons, should we receive receive them, they can develop the family characters into being more interesting and accelerate the ludicrousness to another level. Overall, I don't think that Koala Man was game-changing by any means. It was a decent balance of playing it safe to get the first season off the ground, and it injected that Michael Cusack randomness to give it some quirkiness, albeit not as much as desired, at least to me. Some work can be done in future on some of the characters, but generally the show's central premise and confidence in its Australian identity were enough to satisfy me on the whole and make me look forward to future seasons. However, I'm just a guy who watches stuff, so what I've said in this video could either be 100% accurate or 100% nonsense. That's where you come in. If you agree or disagree with anything I've said and would like to share your thoughts and feelings on season 1 of Koala Man, do let us know down below, as that's what subjectivity is all about. Thanks for watching this video. A cheeky sub to the channel would be great if you haven't already, and knocking that notification bell on will keep you up to date with all the latest series we cover. Until next time, I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and we shall see you again for another honest review. Cheers out.